Welcome to Secrets Out Idaho. Each week, we let you in on the secrets of Southern Idaho and speak to the people who make it such a unique, hidden gem. I'm your host, Connie Stouffer. On this week's episode, we'll be talking to local filmmaker, musician, entrepreneur, podcaster, snowboarder, and all-around Renaissance man, Mark Oliver, on his new venture at the Hot Water Inn, a funky, affordable hostel in Ketchum, Idaho, and hear what he's doing to bring the ski bum culture back to Sun Valley. Mark Oliver, thank you for joining me on Secrets Out Idaho. I'm really excited to learn about you and all the things that you're doing up in the Sun Valley area.
Yeah, what kind of secrets am I going to have to tell you? Is that
they're hidden secrets?
Oh, okay, hidden secrets.
Yeah, so
okay.
the deep, dark ones.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm ready then. I'm ready.
I won't ask you that first, though, so that warm you up a little bit.
Give me a little, you got to wine and dine me before you get the secrets.
We can do that. So why don't I'll start with an easy one.
Okay.
Just tell me about yourself.
Sure. Well, I grew up here in Sun Valley, I guess. My parents moved here when I was, 3 years old. So my parents were, my father was a Presbyterian pastor. My mother was a school teacher. So I kind of, I got the very privileged life of living up here, but I was never very never had all the money to do everything I wanted to do, I guess. But I've been very lucky I love Idaho. I've been very lucky to live here. I feel still to this day very lucky that I'm at least hanging on here, So
what made your family want to move here?
Well, my father ended up getting the job with the at the Presbyterian Church. I'm not sure that there was anything that made them want to come here. I just know that,
it was an opportunity.
It was an opportunity, and they ended up taking it. Yeah.
Right.
So they came, in 85. And if you knew Ketchum in 85, it was a lot different than what it was today. There was a lot of open space, especially along, the Warm Springs Road out here. I can just remember when it was like there were fields and there was, so many homes that just had yet to be built, so I've seen it cycle here quite a bit. Yeah.
And that's something I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about.
Sure.
Is that history from a young person's perspective about what Ketchum was
Sure.
maybe when you were young and maybe what you're trying to inject back into the community.
Right. Yeah. Do you want to know specifically?
I do.
Okay. So, Ketchum, when I was younger, there were a lot of young families. I remember I grew up with a lot of kids around me. Most of my friends, actually, even that I have to this day, when you live in a small community, you have friends for 30 or 40 years. I've had friends for 34 years, and a lot of them, because we grew up in the crib together. We grew up going, our parents babysat each other through the Papoose Club, and so I remember I was on T-ball when I was a kid. I played soccer, it was a really fun time in Ketchum. And I still think that is still very much a part of Ketchum. I just think that, when it's hard. We're getting real deep real quick here. Just because I see a lot less young families here and a lot less kids, especially in Ketchum. For perspective, on Halloween, I went down to Haley. I just had to run down there, and there were like 1,000 people in the streets, young kids. And I rolled back up to Ketchum, and I was driving out to the Hot Water Inn down Warm Springs Road, heading out towards our place. And I looked around, and it was dusk. And I remember when I was a kid in Warm Springs, hundreds of kids running through that neighborhood, all dressed up, looking for candy. And, you really couldn't tell it was Halloween. I think I saw one couple walking their kids down the bike path, and I went like, wow, like, has it really, it was like, and as it got darker, all the lights were off everywhere, instead of like, the jack-o'-lanterns out and people taking their kids around those neighborhoods. Those neighborhoods in that area were thick with families and other kids. And I just think sometimes, man, where did that go? And that's unfortunate. It's kind of sad thinking about what it was running around these areas, as a kid, and not seeing it as much, at least, so that says something, I guess.
So a lot of your friends grew up, moved away. Have some come back, or do some of them want to come back?
Some of them have definitely come back. I think all of us who grew up in this area, and maybe Idaho in general, we move away because we think the dream is really like the California. Like, I went to California. I thought I would be surfing. I thought I would be skateboarding. I thought the life was there. And what I found was, you try to go as far as, let's just go. The closest mall is Twin Falls, which is 79 miles away. Right. And I can get there in an hour. Like, I can't get like 10 miles in LA traffic in an hour. People would say, well, what do you do for fun? I can't believe you live in Idaho. Like, what do you do up there? And I'd be like, well, I go camping, I go fishing, I snowboard, I skateboard, I bike. And they'd go, well, where's the closest mall? Like, it's 80 miles away. And they just like are mind boggled, saying like, oh, how do you survive? Like, we have a movie theater, but it only plays movies till 9. Yeah, that's a bummer. But like, so as a kid, you're always, I don't know, your perspective of this place is a lot different. You feel like everything's better somewhere else, and you don't really realize until you leave, until you go to college, until you're away from this place, how good you had it, and how, the things that we are, that we get to experience here being Idahoans is that we get to, really, we have this amazing nature connection in every direction, whether it's like south in the prairie and down there and in the lava flows. I mean, I find that just absolutely amazing. If it's like east, I can go into like old growth forests on the Boise River. If it's north, I can go up to Stanley and I can hike all over the place to big mountain ranges and lakes and hot springs and, fishing. And if I go, east, I can go be in the Pioneers and like very arid, not a lot of water, like just unbelievably rugged terrain. And I find that just, I took that for granted trying to go somewhere else. And I also found that like everybody else kind of has this view of Idaho, like it's like this, well, I think we all know this. They think it's Iowa, it's flat and it's full of potatoes, but it's absolutely the opposite. And we benefit from the people just being that idiotic about our state, I guess. So, but have people returned? Yeah, I think most people get out there in the world and they say, well, and some of them landed in places that are similar, but they have a hard time too. Like, I just think that even in places like Colorado or Montana or different places, you go down a dirt road and you hit a, no trespassing sign. And I think, you don't get that in Idaho. If I want to go sleep somewhere on the side of a dirt road, I'm going to go do it, and I'm not going to be hassled, and it's going to be beautiful. And I don't know that, like, I've gone and driven around. I lived in Gig Harbor for a while, and I went back at one point with my camera to go shoot some photos, and I started driving down dirt roads, and I ended up just every single one I went down, I couldn't go down it because somebody owns that property, and we are blessed to not have that problem here.
My husband and I had a similar experience. We thought we wanted to move to the coast, and we were going to do all those sorts of things. And we also realized how good we had it after we left. And it was a lot about the access to the outdoors. Mm-hmm. We thought we moved to Oregon and there's all this beautiful forest, but we couldn't access most of it. Most of it was privately owned.
Right.
You couldn't get on it. And we're like, what do you mean we can't go through the forest? We're supposed to, and I think you get spoiled in Idaho because we just have access to just about everywhere you want to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is, it's the thing that, draws us back here, I would say, after we really discover what the real world out there is like, and unfortunately that's gated roads, and that's, people who, this is mine and it's not yours and I don't want to share it, and Idaho is kind of a little different than that. And I hope it stays that way. I hope that the people that are in power can help us keep our public lands public and open. And, I see that there are fears of, people that buy up, hundreds of thousands of acres. I think that's happened down in Boise, and they've closed hunting access, and these are roads that should be open to the public, that happen to cut through their road, cut through the land that they've now purchased, which is, and I fear that the more of that happens, there'll be this trend. And I'm not really sure why Idaho feels the need to sell that stuff away to a big bidder. Do we really gain that much by selling that land for, $20 million or $100 million or whatever? I'd rather just pay everybody in Idaho pay an extra $50 and we keep it ours, and who knows?
That way we don't lose who we are and our culture.
Yeah, exactly.
So that kind of brings me to what you're doing here at the Hot Water Inn. I think I've heard some great things about this here and what you're trying to inject into the community. Yeah.
So the Hot Water Inn is kind of something that fell in my lap. I'm a musician as well as, an outdoor person. I'm an avid snowboarder. Currently have a snowboard podcast, which is hilarious, but I guess the Hot Water Inn to me really was like founded on this idea that we don't have a way for, there's a couple different things. We don't have affordable housing in this place. So we came up on this hotel. It's obviously in the state that's not like, no one's gonna try to fix this place up by any means, and it's not run down by any means.
No, I think it looks very cozy and fun.
It's gonna take hundreds of thousands of dollars to make it what the limelight is, and we just realized that it's a 16 bedroom like hostel hotel, and affordable housing basically. And we, as being a first time business in the hotel industry, realized we weren't going to survive on the shoulder seasons, being that like nobody really knew who we were. We were already having challenges getting people to actually take us seriously as a form of accommodation. So we needed to subsidize that with affordable housing. And we found that, I mean, there's such a need for affordable housing for one in this place that you're never going to have a problem, renting units long term. I've had 3 phone calls in the last 24 hours about places to live, and I have to be like, I'm so sorry, like the people that are here, just they're not leaving. You're gonna, you kind of have to just be here at the right time. Like I can put you on a list, but on the other side of it, it's going to be the right person that's going to be in this space, that's going to be okay with the things that we end up doing on a very weekly basis, So, but anyway, so that's part of it. 1/3 would be affordable housing. 1/3 would be we have short-term nightly rentals, so they're kind of like Airbnbs, and we just try to keep them affordable, but also realistic for what the market is looking at. Like, if this place is full up in Ketchum, I'm going to rent it a little more, and like, make sure I can subsidize for that ability to have affordable housing. I will tell you, it's hard for me to justify the affordable housing knowing how much I can make in June, July, August, September, and, December, January, February, maybe into March. It's hard justifying that. I get that. I get why people short term. I get why people turn to Airbnb and say, well, I'm going to make twice as much this year on my apartment, and I get to go to it whenever I want, and so you can't fault people for doing that. The third part of our sorry, I'm totally just like tangenting away from
no,
this.
You're great.
The third part of kind of things is a hostel. Why not give a person like a $30 a night bed? It ranges somewhere between, I've gone as low as 20, I've gone as high as 45, but generally it kind of sits somewhere in like the 30-35 range for a night at the Hot Water Inn. And I figure that through that I will reintroduce or introduce new people to this area. Sometimes I go, well, is somebody who's going to spend $129 on a ski pass really looking to stay at a hostel? Are they really looking to save that much money? Like, I feel like those people are probably going to the Limelight and spending $300 and just saying like, why don't I just light this money up and burn it, and most certainly there are those people. I think that we probably survive a lot on the Mountain Collective Pass, the few, college students that are actually like somehow marketed up here and are looking for the cheapest option they possibly can have. And we get that, we get those kind of people through here too, but I guess, through that you get to meet new people, and you get to introduce new people to this area, and they get excited about it and they want to come back. And I think that's maybe the most fulfilling, part of it all, is just is on a very regular basis getting to see new people be experiencing this place, and having fun in it. Because when a place gets too expensive for my demographic, you're just not going to get those people up here. And what are we doing as a community, as a resort town, as a ski area to try to bring those people here? And I think if you boil it down, it's not happening all across the board in other resort towns in the ski industry. Tell me how you introduce a family who's never skied to skiing in a place like Sun Valley in the middle of winter. You don't. And you know why? Because it's going to cost that family $2,000 at the very least, between hotel rooms, between food, between a ski pass, and they're going to come in and just feel completely taken, and that's unfortunate. Like, so how do we, as I have this conversation quite often on my podcast, the Snowboard Project podcast, just about how you introduce somebody into your sport when it's just such a hard barrier of entry, but that's one part of probably the reason why towns like ours find themselves struggling to attract people or struggling to keep people. Nowadays, I will say, the secondary part is with keeping people here. sorry, this is like, am I just going off topic?
You're totally fine.
With
I'm excited to learn about all this.
with people coming here to live here, now rent is so high. If you do find a place, you are working a third job. You used to say like, you have, 2 jobs, you can't, excuse me. I can't remember what the saying is. It's like, I don't know. Someone out there is going to go like, you're an idiot. You can't forget that saying that we always say, but it's something along the lines of like, you can live in this place, but you better have 2 or 3 jobs, to make it work. And it's so true because, but nowadays it's like rent, good luck finding something for under $1,000, 1 bedroom or whatever. And, now you're going to have to make that $1,000 in your job that's paying you $15 an hour, so what are you spending? Half of what you make on your rent, at the end of the month. And now you're expected to get up in the morning all bright and bushy tailed to go do what you really are here for, to go skiing, and then end by 2 to go to your first job, be done with that by 6 or 7 to go to your second job, be back home by midnight or 1 and wake up and do it again. And I think that's not happening because it's just the energy level is not, you can't sustain like that,
Yeah, if you've got 3 jobs, you've only got time to like eat and sleep, maybe.
Right. And, and I think that's happening. They might get a day off and go skiing, or they might just sleep all day, And so what is that? What's that draw really bringing people to this area to work the whole time, I think that's a problem.
Well, that's why I think it's so great. What you're doing is you're giving an entry point to people who have a passion for skiing and living that mountain lifestyle without them having to give up on it because they realize it's not sustainable. And I think a lot of resort communities struggle with that because how do you make it an attractive place where people want to go and have that exclusive experience, but also allow people to live there and support that industry? And it's a hard balance and even in your own business, you're figuring out, how do I balance supporting rentals with making money as a business and supporting this kind of community? Still
struggling with that. Yeah, absolutely. Because I see there's this great need for people to have, obviously, one of the things we need to live is having shelter. We can't just all live in our cars. You can in the summer, but not in the winter.
The winter's a little too cold for that.
Exactly. So, I have a heart for that stuff. But, with that definitely comes challenges. I mean, like managing people that do or don't respect your space, that do or don't respect the fact that I'm also a hostel and a hotel, that I still have people coming through here that really want an experience, that might not appreciate some of the things they end up doing. So, I totally understand when people are like, I'm not renting anymore. I'm not renting long-term anymore, because I've reached that point with a couple of people just being like, you know what, screw it. I'm done, get out. Like, let's make this a short-term rental, And so there has to be that understanding that like, hey, this is also a privilege to have my space. Yeah. I don't look at it like, oh, it's a privilege, for you to have that, so get out. But, it's like that they still have to respect that space. And I think that should be thought about a lot more among people who end up renting.
Yeah, because the other part, if it wasn't for the other part, they wouldn't be able to get rent for so cheap.
Right.
And so it's like a give and take. It sounds
exactly.
Like. Yeah.
Exactly. So I've appreciated them and I've been frustrated at the same time.
I think that's probably the story for most business owners. It's a love-hate sort of relationship sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
So when I walked in, I noticed lots of guitars and music equipment. Yeah. So, and that sounds like it's another part of what you do here. And is it one of your passions? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, snowboarding obviously was like number one. I'm growing up in a ski town, snowboarding, but I broke my foot a few years ago.
Oh no.
Photographing some skateboarding, another passion, and here I was like, laid up for a while. It was pretty brutal break. So I picked up my guitar. I was always like into guitar, but never thought I'd actually be able to be in a band. And all of a sudden I found myself like writing music with somebody, and before I knew it, I was in a band. We were going to like, I think within the first year I'd recorded an album and I was admitted to Treefort.
Oh my
and we
gosh.
played Treefort for like 6 years, I think 5 or 6 years now. We've played Treefort, and through that experience I realized, you look at what's happening in Southern Idaho and Boise specifically, and you see this just like resurgence of youth, or maybe just this injection of youth. And some people can look at it and say, this is the worst thing ever. California is coming to Idaho. We're so screwed. It's changing my place, and I look at it as this like really beautiful opportunity that Idaho's had. Some people say, well, it's now becoming Portland and it's now becoming Seattle. And those people, I think every place can say like, well, I remember when about their hometown. And I can most certainly say that about Ketchum, and I've heard that a lot from people from Boise, but there is this beautiful thing that's happening down there. And I'm not really sure. I think Treefort is part of it. You can go there that week and just understand, this community that is like, yes, we're all in. They made it their cultural ambassador to Boise, Treefort, which I don't really know what that means, but I know that has to be up there with just like being, hey, by the way, you're steering the ship, and I think you look at what Eric Gilbert and Lori Shandro have done with Duck Club and with Treefort Music Festival, and they most certainly are the people that are pushing the buttons in cool areas and making Boise not one of those places that's like, hey, I think I need to go to Seattle, or I need to go to San Francisco, or I need to go to Portland to do this. No, Boise has it all now. They have great food, they have great culture, they have music that young people want to be a part of. And so as a business up in Ketchum saying like, okay, which direction is my town going? Like the symphony's great. I think that's amazing that we have that opportunity, and most certainly seeing acts like Kenny Loggins come through every once in a while is amazing, but it doesn't necessarily sit there and connect with my demographic. And I find that is an underserved area. And I think it always was. How this place really became about was I had a band. I had a photo studio that was like 16-foot high ceilings, 60 feet deep. And a friend said, we should do a house show sometime. And I went like, yeah, we totally should do that. That's a great idea. And about a week later, I had to put my money where my mouth was when he said, well, I have this band called the Holiday Friends. They're amazing. They're on tour with us. They want to come through Ketchum. Can we do a show on Monday? And I went like, and I had to like then clean my house and push all the photo gear to the side and scrounge up a sound system. And we did that first show. You can go watch a video of it. I videoed it and I just went like, boom, the lights went off. Like we can have experiences like this, these experiences that, at Treefort Music Festival, I watched the most amazing band in the back of a brewery. And I had this point where I just went like, you know what? I don't need to be out in the middle of a giant field with 4,000 other people looking out 8 feet up at a stage and feel disconnected and wondering why $45 is out of my pocket. In actuality, I'm having a better time with this band that's like a C-level band out of Portland that are unbelievable musicians in the back of this brewery of 50 other people. So the experience for me was that. And if I could, and then, a number of years, some friends of mine did this thing called Ranch Fest, where they had stages in barns and out in the middle of the prairie, and it was everybody camped. And I just felt like, boy, if you could like recreate this in some kind of fashion on a regular basis, you can't not win. You will always do well because people will connect with the music. Now, the Hot Water Inn was born out of those ideas, saying like, okay, if I have a space to do this, how would I execute it? And I wasn't sure that this place actually had the ability to do that. The room was kind of small. It had at the time had a wall going through it. But we started doing music in there, and like the old 80s like wood that's paneled all across it left for this like unbelievable rich sound, and maybe, I don't know what to say. Like, when you are handed something and you have to work with it and you have to create in that space, then you discover things about it that were way more special than you ever thought. Right. And I feel that about this place is that when you get, 50, 60, 70 people in that room and it's everyone's shoulder to shoulder, and it's, some people are sweating because it's so warm, and that band is 6 inches from you and everybody's moving. You are connecting. And it was never, the big misconception when I had my other space was, well, it's just a big party. People are going there and they're getting drunk and they're driving away and they're having fights. And, I heard that the city council ended up shutting my space down in the industrial park. One, because you couldn't gather, apparently. Oh. That was and that one was funny to me. I could go I could explain how that I think is hypocritical on some level, because there were other gatherings that were happening, and it was just like, well, they are these people that have money, not you, and so, but now that I had a space where it was like totally okay, I was able to discover that like there was this need to have entertainment that was connecting with a younger demographic. And I think it's part of the reason why, or I think having that is one reason why people want to stay. And not the hot water specifically, but it's one of the things where it's like, if I'm feeling underserved in this place, then I don't think I want to be here. And you know what? Boise is doing everything right. Boise is drawing me in with this band and this band and this band, and these things happening and saying, come and create and come and do this. And, my town really wasn't, and still to an extent is, is not. I worry about the programming at new places like the Arduous. Are they going to, is it, people dumping millions and millions of dollars into a space? I hope that they understand that they're now responsible for at least trying to serve, I don't know, the high schoolers who have nothing to do, the people that are, underserved by whiskeys, because whiskey seems to brings a lot of the same acts through, and just go like, okay, how can we think creatively out of the box in something that's going to connect to everybody? And it's a hard thing to do, but it's not impossible. I look at what is going down in Boise with those people. I look at what's happening, and those communities most certainly can do that. So the hot water was born on that idea, and I feel like we serve this population of people, and it's not. And what I found is, okay, here it is. I thought I would be serving the young people, and I do most certainly. You go to a show, you see Jared Meese and the Grown Children, or you see, who did I have this fall? I had so many bands, World's Finest, or Shanti Darling, or, Edison, Sunbathe, and you are there understanding that this is a band that came all the way from Portland and, has these different vibes about them. And then you look over and there's like a 65-year-old, woman who's just like rocking out and just like, I love this place. And you're like, and then you see the 21-year-old right next to her being like, me too, and I think those are the experiences where I just go like, this is all worth it. This is what it's about. This, serving the community. And a lot of the time I think people probably are like, Mark must make so much money on these shows, and a lot of the time like, hey man, I have to risk, maybe that band was $1,500 and I have to get how many people through the door to clear that at a $10 cover? Maybe not a $10, maybe that's like $20 cover. It's like, I have to get all those people through the door. And if I fall short of that, then I'm paying that. You know? And so there's this constantly like, will I attract enough people to make that happen? And, I would say most of the time I break even at least on the band, and sometimes I've lost a lot of money, and so, it's always fun, but I'm constantly gambling, I guess, in this business, which is probably bad business to anybody that listens to that. But it's out of the passion of me wanting to bring these things to my community that otherwise wouldn't be here,
Well, I think that's so awesome in the story about like the 65-year-old woman and the 21-year-old, person, like having a good time together in the community and bringing something that brings those demographics together. Because there are other events that are going on in the community where you're like, you're probably not going to get the 20-year-old crowd there. And how do you get people to have fun in their community and be passionate about it and stay and then want to do more of what you're doing?
Sure.
Are you seeing people like kind of move in that direction where they're wanting to see more of that, or are you still kind of trying to blaze that trail yourself? Or
as in they're wanting to see more options of fun things to go on?
Yeah.
I think we started doing, comedy has happened in the past here, and there was a great place out in Sun Valley that did comedy, and I remember like it would be a great reason to take a girl on a date, right? And I still use like, hey, come to comedy because it's a great reason to take someone on a date, and I really started doing comedy here last year. Because I was like, when was the last time I got to see comedy, And before I knew it, like within a month or two, like all the other venues were doing like a comedy night. And I thought, okay. And then this summer, one of the bands that came through and was recommended, that I'd had through 2 or 3 times was all of a sudden playing for Sun Valley Center for the Arts,
Oh.
And, this other band that I had was playing this event and these things. And so, on some level as a venue and as a promoter, you sit there and you go like, oh, I can't believe they took this band from me that I built up this, audience for. And on the other side, I try to go like, like maybe this is the biggest compliment I can be paid, because really the purpose was to change your community rather than try to make money off something is great, right? Or try to make a living at that, And I most certainly can say that that's part of the thing is if I could make a living doing something I'm passionate about, then heck, and stay here in this town, then that's amazing, like that's what I'd want to do. But to see them take a band from me and run with it, I am happy for that. I find that as complimentary rather than, or I've tried to.
Imitation is the finest form of flattery.
There you go.
Right?
There you go. Yeah. I'm really bad about remembering those things. Like, necessity is the mother of invention. I only know that because I had to use that today at some point.
I'll probably have to use it tomorrow.
Right. So, but
well, speaking of imitating things, one thing
Sure.
I just had a thought as we were talking is the Sun Valley Film Festival.
Mm-hmm.
I've enjoyed that myself because
Sure.
I'm into film.
Sure.
But they use lots of different venues all over
Right.
town to
Right.
do different things. And
Yeah.
have you or other people thought about doing like a music festival and having venues all over the place, like have a week of awesome music that's
Yes.
not jazz or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have absolutely thought that. I've absolutely thought, let's do a music festival. The Sun Valley Film Festival is certainly a cool thing that has happened. I've been a part of it. I've shot it. I've had films in it. And I've enjoyed that. I'm also a filmmaker.
Oh, awesome. You're a busy guy.
I've done a lot. And so, and that's a really cool thing to see our town come alive during that. I applaud the people that take the energy and the time to add to our community. Right now, I would say, yes, I would love to do a little mini tree fort here. I've most certainly talked about doing a 2-day festival, figuring it out. But I'm currently just trying to get a handle on all the other things I have, which is one, making the hot water inn survive.
Yeah.
And I most certainly, if approached, would love to sit down and figure out like, oh, you know what? How is it that Sun Valley can't have a festival like the Telluride Bluegrass Festival? And we have enough people that are probably wealthy enough to help back that and make that, take that risk with us, and enough people that would probably donate time to making something like that happen. I would love to do that. I don't know if I can add one more thing to my current life right now.
Yeah, you've got a lot going on.
Yeah, it's hard. I
would have thought just running a business would have kept you like fully busy, but then also a podcast and filmmaking and being a musician and probably finding time to ski or snowboard every once in a while.
I also have the business of having a girlfriend that lives in Boise, so every once in a while I have to take off and drive.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's funny. It's like my happiest time of every couple weeks is when I get to actually leave here. And I know that sounds crazy, but I just get to like spend some time not, worrying about everything and like, constantly working. Yeah. Little mini vacations, like 36 hours in Boise is just like a vacation for me. I get to listen to podcasts and, remember, just give myself a little bit of a breather.
Yeah.
And be in Boise and be inspired by something else. I constantly go down there and I'm just like, God, look at what that guy did with a shipping container on the side of the river. He made a bar. Like, why aren't we doing that? So
I think Boise's a good like incubator for some good ideas because there's a lot of energy there. But Ketchum in the Sun Valley area has so much potential.
Totally.
And it has so much draw and so much, I think that there's not a whole lot that you couldn't do here that they do there, even though Boise's so much bigger. Totally.
I think the hardest thing in Ketchum is, and I'm just going to be brutally honest, it's this idea of, the fear of the unknown, and the fear of what's going to happen to my backyard when this one thing that I don't necessarily love happens. Am I going to lose my privacy? Am I going to lose my quiet? And I think, I will say, as the hot water was being built, I started doing an outdoor music series every week, right? And I did it all last summer and I did it all this summer. And I took bands that you would not put in the public park and Ketchum. And I took this chance and saying like, well, I'm going to bring this band Sisters, or I'm going to bring Thunder Pussy. Sorry. And you know what? It's so funny because, I'd be like, there'd be nobody there. And I'd be like, okay, just start playing music. I guess we'll play it until people come here. And it was like they'd strum that first chord and play that first song, and by the end of the first song there'd be 6 or 8 more people, and then you'd see them walking down the street with their their wine and their beer, and of course I'd have to ask them to drink it before they came walking in, but they would come walking down the street, they come out of the woodwork, and all of a sudden I realized that like half the people that were coming were in this area of our town that generally doesn't have anything going on in the summer, and they would come out, and then all of a sudden there were people that were like, I want to do a little barbecue here beforehand, and I'd be like, sure, bring your friends, eat some food, and all of a sudden this little community would come out of the woodwork, and I'd have a full place. And then the young people would all come on their bikes and we'd have a full house, and I'd be sitting there at midnight like, remember how you were feeling at 7:45 with 6 people here, half of them being your staff, and it was cool. So, I don't really know where I'm going with that, but like I found that like, you know, the people that would say not in my backyard would only say that until they actually came out and they saw what was happening and they were able to be a part of it. And I think misunderstanding is the biggest probably problem with everything. Everyone just assumes this is going to be bad for me or this is going to be a bad thing. And, you know, but they don't understand is if they just open their mind up to that experience, they might actually enjoy it, you know? And they might actually find that like every week they should come out and come dancing and they should bask in the glory of what it is to be in music and in community with other people that might not be the people that they would normally hang out with. I think this place gets drawn into their cliques of like, well, I only hang out with these people or I only hang out with this, you know, but when you're just thrust into like this thing of like being like, I'm going to go, you know, see whatever band Mark has at the Hot Water this week. And then being forced, you know, to do that next to the 21-year-old and next to the 65-year-old and then find a common ground. It's really a beautiful thing. And I think it enriches not only my space, the Hot Water or Warm Springs in general, but it enriches our area, you know, and then leads it, you know, when you blaze that trail, then it allows other people to actually, okay, now I can do this. I can take this risk and we should do this. And maybe we can, you know, I hope that things are born out of that from other businesses and other people, you know, even if I fail and I'm gone, I hope that people like, you know, that idea that we can change it still goes forward. You know, we do like an open mic night every week. And I think my hope with is that as sometimes my ears bleed and I go like, get off the stage sooner than later, I go like, well, this person's putting themselves out there. They're taking a risk and maybe they'll meet another person to take that risk with. And before I know it, they will actually be something that I can say like, yeah, maybe you want to do an opener for a band, you know, and I can breed, you know, like a band can be born from that experience. So I think on all levels, hopefully things are born and ideas are born through just like a community space to do that, you know. And yeah, it looks a little rough around here. Sometimes you can say like the paint's falling off or, you know, the trim's whatever, you know, on the outside of the building. And you can say that place is a pile of crap. But you know what, like that turd or whatever it is really makes some shiny diamonds on the inside, you know. And that's the bottom line of all of it. That was a terrible analogy, but is, you know, I constantly am like, oh, this place, but you walk inside and you're instantly cozy and you instantly feel like it's home and you realize that the imperfections of what a building is are perfect because they're imperfections.
I just thought it was so charming when I came up here. It was my first time being over in this part of town when I came over to meet you, and the trees and the snow and just when you walk in and it's just, it was really welcoming. And I think so. I mean, I think it's more diamond than turd.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
And I feel like with all the work that you're doing and other people are starting to do, I feel like Ketchum and Sun Valley is kind of on a precipice for some change. Do you feel that too? Or what do you see as on the future of the horizon for this area?
Boy, I hope so. I think we are going to be forced to be on the future of change. Or I hope our future involves change, because if we don't figure it out soon, we're going to be left with a ghost town. And I really believe that, you know. And I hate saying this, but, you know, in my last 15 years from being back from college, has it been 15 years, 14 years or whatever it is, you know, I've seen people come and go, and lately I've been seeing more people go than actually come, you know, and I think there are a number of reasons for that. I think if we don't sort out how we can actually house people, then we are going to be without the people that sustain this on a regular basis.
So being an optimist and saying that something does happen in the positive and things kind of go that way. And someone's thinking about taking one of those job openings for those help wanted signs that have been up for 2 years. Is
this what this podcast is really about? I'm supposed to be selling this. Yeah. Okay. Oh my God.
I didn't tell you that because I want that. Yeah. I want your honest feedback.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't want you to tell me it's all roses, because then people are going to come up here and be like, you didn't tell me it was $3,000 a month to rent something.
It's not quite $3,000, but you know, it's probably going to get there.
Yeah.
Here's
but why should someone dig a little deeper if they wanted to come be a ski bum, but also wanted to have that experience?
Well, they absolutely should come and be a ski bum. I think that there are so many good things that come from just being that connected to nature, and I don't think a lot of people quite understand that until they're in this place. And the people that stumble upon here and end up landing here just randomly end up, you know, realizing that they're in this like little gem, this little pocket, this area that is so special. And in comparison to the rest of the world, not a lot of people get to experience this. I feel like we're in this, you know, top 0.1% of like, you know, percentile of people that actually discover this place. I shouldn't actually be saying this because, like the experiences that I've had and living here are just like, I can't even compare them to anything. Like, yeah, I've sat in like high mountain lakes looking at like the Milky Way as crisp as a picture. And yeah, I've, been thousands of feet up in a mountain lake looking at a mountain goat. And yeah, I have like, driven hundreds of thousands of dirt road miles, with my friends and discovered ghost towns and, found unbelievable geological formations. And I've, climbed up. I mean, the list could go on and on and on about the things that you're going to discover about this place that you will not, in most instances, not have that in such a close geographical area, Like I said, you can go any direction and have a new adventure in this place, and it's going to be amazing. Are you going to sacrifice for being here? Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes I sacrifice a future for actually my now. I say like, well, now I get to experience all this stuff, but at the expense of my 401k, and like, and hopefully, I guess my hope is like, I get to build something that's this passionate that I can put my stamp on and say like, hey, I did this. And by the way, it afforded me enough to actually like create a life here, but it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. It's like my sorry, I shouldn't be negative. I need to be positive. Sorry. You are going to find unbelievable things. And there is also a really great community in this place. As much as I say there are the NIMBYs and there are also the people that are fighting against that, are saying like, yes, in my backyard. Yes, I will come out and I will support. And yes, we're going to do these fun things. And yes, we're going to make this place awesome and contribute. And I hope more people are inspired to actually do that, to actually contribute, to actually take part in their community and be involved. And this last year we put a 27-year-old or 26-year-old on the city council, and her youthfulness, I hope, will add to some of that conversation, saying like, no, you know what, this needs to happen. And you know what, no, I don't agree with that, because I think there are a lot of people there have been a lot of decisions in the past that have just been like, well, the people that showed up, they get it, or the people that, so I don't know. There's hope in this place in things like that. And there's hope that, I think, if you come here, you will love it. It's just figuring out how to stay here. That's the hard part,
Well, I think one thing that I've noticed when I've been up here is the passion that people have for the area.
Yeah.
And you don't see that. Lots of people just live a place and they go to work and they go home and they might like a place, but they're not passionate about it. They're not out there actively trying to make it better. And there's so much of that here, whether they're passionate about the outdoors or passionate about the arts or whatever. There are people who are just really engaged and passionate. And I think it's something about this area that makes that happen in people.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. People they move here and they're like, everybody's just so fit and beautiful. I'm like a thicker kid, I'm like the thickest, of like the people here that are active. They're very engaged in their environment around here. I mean, like, the people that will just ride their bikes thousands of miles every summer, and there are people that will hike every peak, and it's like everybody. There are people that'll ski 100+ days and have millions and millions of vertical feet under their skis and their boards. I mean, it's like phenomenal. And people are very passionate about the things that they're very passionate about. If it's hunting, there are hunters here, that will spend all fall just tracking, with a bow, like an antelope, and then they get it and it's like their thing. Yes, they're passionate. The community the community that is here is so outdoor oriented. That is their main goal. They wake up, they live, they breathe the outdoors. That's why sometimes the music, I feel, is like something that's almost a little too sedentary for my community, but it's fun exposing them to it. And, once they realize that like dancing is a beautiful thing,
and
being able to move, and being able to, to grab someone's hand and spin them and dip them and it's a beautiful thing. And anyways, people are passionate about whatever it is they're passionate about here. The arts, this place is like unbelievable in the arts. I will say it doesn't always connect with me, but for us to have a symphony every summer, and I believe now winter in the Arduous, is a free symphony, like that's unbelievable. The amount of money that it must take to house 100 people that are like at the top of their game from symphonies all over the world to come play for us for 3 or 4 weeks out of the summer is crazy. Like those are experiences that nobody gets, except if you're here. I mean, that's like crazy. You could grow up here and be like, what, you don't have a summer symphony? Like, that's hilarious.
That's another way we're spoiled here in Idaho.
And like there's amazing artists and speakers and different people that the library brings through. I mean, it's just like, it's never ending here. So we are very spoiled in things that people are passionate about. They will make it happen here, so yeah.
So now is the part of the podcast where I ask you about your secrets. So
sure. Okay.
Secret spots that if you're not from Ketchum and you're going to come up here for the first time, what should someone go and check out? Whether it's it's open ended, so it could be outdoorsy, it could be music, it could be anything.
Sure. Well, first come to the Hot Water Inn and say hello and have a beer with me. And if we have an event going on, then come see that. We're a little pocket on the side of Warm Springs.
And you are like a little bit of a secret. You're new.
Yeah, we've been a little bit of a secret. I think there's still people that discover us every week and are like, I just had a great time. Have you heard of the Hot Water Inn? It's like I still haven't been there. I've kind of heard about it. Yeah. So we're still kind of like being discovered. It's crazy to me in a town, in a valley of like, what's the valley? Like 15,000, 18,000 people. I don't know, or a county. And it's just like, I still get these people that are like, but anyways, regardless, let's just talk about real secrets and real things. Like, look, honestly, every direction you go is a secret. Like if you go out Warm Springs Road and you go over Dollar High and you go past Warswick Hot Springs and you drive all the way to Featherville, you will find so many secrets of little things. It doesn't matter where you pull off on that river or wherever, you're going to discover something. And you might just drive a dirt road, as far as it can go, and you get to the top of it and there's a shack, and you walk into that shack and you pull out a core sample that miner pulled out in like the early 1900s looking for gold. That's the kind of secret that I like. There are hot springs up in the Stanley area. Yeah, there's wild horses up in the Chalice National Forest that I have taken pictures of. I've driven, and found agate all along that stretch. You can go into the Pioneers and I don't know. You can't. It's just like never ending secret places. I mean,
the wild horses is one of those things that like is so quintessential West.
Sure.
I feel like you haven't really experienced the West until you've seen wild horses just running free out. Like
an experience I had with my girlfriend. We were up just driving between, and I'd seen this one buckskin wild horse. Like it had walked by my friend's property out by Mackey one day, and I shot photos of it. And then I was coming back from this at his music festival 6 months later, and I ran into the same grouping of horses, and then I saw him in the high mountains. And then one day my girlfriend and I don't know why we were running. There are hundreds of horses out there, but I kept running into this pod of 3 or 4. And one spring, my girlfriend and I were up in the Chalice National Forest, and I look over and I'm like, that's that buckskin that I keep shooting photos of, that I keep seeing. And I get out of my car.
He's like
and
your spirit animal.
Yeah, and we drove my truck up there and we parked it on the side of the mountain, and I walked over this little knoll, and he was there with his two ladies and 2 little babies, and all the ladies are freaking out, and the horses they're trying to protect their kin, and I'm shooting photos of them, and they're kind of running back and forth, and all of a sudden the buckskin just stops and it just starts walking towards me, and I'm shooting photos, and I like have my 72, and all of a sudden he's like filling the whole frame, and I can't zoom out anymore, and it just walks up and it just puts its head down right in front of me, and I look back at my girlfriend, and she loves horses. I put my hand on its thing and I start rubbing under its chin.
Oh my gosh.
Here's this wild horse I'm just having this experience with. And, my girlfriend then walks up slowly, and, we're just petting this horse, and you just go like, wow, that, like, how did I just befriend this horse
that
in
was
a matter
magical,
of like 5 minutes? Yeah. And so I shot a whole bunch of photos of her with it, and this horse, I have yet to see it again, but that's that year. There are those 2 years I saw it probably 5 different times in different places. And I don't know if it was just a horse that was just different, and maybe it was released but it was never friendly to me in those other situations, And I haven't had that experience since. I have been down there in the, when they all come and they group up in there's a basin out Spur Road, and they, in the summers, they'll come down in the winters, they'll come down into the low areas, or in the falls, and they'll just all be a big group of horses. I've driven my car way out there and gotten out and seen the most amazing, like, dapple horses with just like all their mares. And it's crazy because I'll be laying there on the ground with my camera shooting photos of them, and it's like they're having a conversation. It's like one will neigh and one will take off, and all three will follow, and then they'll all stop like in succession and look, and then he'll wave his head and neigh the other way, and they'll move a little further. It's like there's this real like conversation that they're having, and he's curious about me, and I'm curious about him, and he'll walk up, and then he'll walk away, and then he'll get up on his back legs and let me know that this is his terrain, and these are his ladies, so yeah, I would say in terms of secrets and in terms of gems, like those are pretty magical experiences that you just don't get in a lot of places, So.
It's hard to have that same connection to nature that you have here when you can get
Sure.
so deep into wilderness.
Yeah.
And the stars, you mentioned the stars earlier. The first time I went camping up in the Sawtooth, I woke up in the middle of the night and unzipped my tent, and just like the sliver of sky that I could see, like I'd seen more stars in that sliver in the opening of my tent than I'd seen my whole life. It was
Your whole life, yeah.
It was just the most amazing. I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, and then you wake up in the morning and you make a little cold pressed coffee, or you make a little coffee on your jet boil. You hop back in the car and you go find a hot springs and you go sit in it, and you're off to your next adventure. You might be going and checking out the Yankee Fork Dredge, or you might be looking at like, some waterfalls somewhere. Or you might be rafting on the, Salmon River. Those experiences are experiences that like people in their lifetime will very rarely, if ever, get. I think of all the people that live in major metropolitan areas, and they have these pictures on the wall, and they go like, that's amazing, that might exist somewhere, or maybe their whole existence is waiting for those 2 weeks a year to go and experience that mountain that sits on their desk. And the truth is that whenever you live in Sun Valley, or like, in not just Sun Valley, a lot of places in Idaho, anytime you're not working, you're on vacation. When you're not having to actually be at work, you are out experiencing the thing that like sits on people's desks in downtown Los Angeles. And they get, they most certainly have, their big homes and their nice cars in LA, and they live for a stretch of sand that's 200 feet before it hits the ocean, and that's what they live for. I live for like, the most amount of like wilderness in the lower 48. I live for a state that if you flattened all the mountains would be bigger than Texas. I live for a place that, like, if you look on a map that of the darkest areas in Idaho, you see Idaho #1 because the Frank Church is hundreds of square miles of just nothing that people can actually develop and put lights on. Those are the things that you discover and you find out about Idaho that are unlike anywhere in the United States.
It's such an amazing place.
Amazing, yeah.
So, tell me where they can find you at the Hot Water Inn.
They can find me at the Hot Water Inn. Generally, I'm like at the bar at my computer, or like, like maybe setting up the band, or,
And they can also learn more about the snowboard scene on your podcast.
Yeah, they can learn about the snowboard scene on the Snowboard Project. You can find us on iTunes, on Spotify, on just about anywhere. If you Google us, our website's a little behind. Don't pay too much attention to that, but you can most certainly listen to us. And it's crazy. That's another thing that just grew out of the creative space that is the Hot Water. It's funny, you do a podcast. We're sitting in the middle of a hostel right now doing a podcast, and that's my every week. And then it's just like edited out of this little like, office in the front. It's like, I think hundreds of thousands of people have heard my voice from this place, and I get to blast the Hot Water name in there. So yes, you can find me somewhere at the Hot Water Inn on a very regular basis.
And your band plays Tree Forks?
We may or may not play this year. Last year I didn't actually apply for it, but he called me and was like, "We got a spot. You want it?" And so,
what's your band's name in case they want to?
Yeah, my band is called the Sheep Bridge Jumpers.
Nice.
So, and that's bridge, not ridge. Most people will be like Sheep Ridge, yeah. Sheep Bridge Jumpers. Yeah. And our songs are most certainly Idaho inspired. And we haven't put too much out there lately, but we love playing. We played the opening of the Arduous, and we all decided that we needed to probably play a little bit more because it was really a fun time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and every once in a while, maybe New Year's, you'll see us on stage here, and everyone will be sweating, and Zach might be taking his shirt off or something ridiculous.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it is for sure. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us on Secrets Out Idaho and sharing us with all that you're doing here. And I'm excited to see what's on in the future for the Hot Water Inn and for Sun Valley.
All right. Yeah. And anybody out there, please come see me. Please come say hello. And catch you next time.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Later.
Thanks for listening to Secrets Out Idaho. You can follow Southern Idaho Economic Development on social media or visit southernidaho.org to learn more. Please take a moment to leave a rating and review and subscribe so you can be the first to hear more Secrets Out Idaho. Until next time.